about to do your business in my dad's helmet.
So anyway, I just got done watching the new He-Man cartoon on Netflix. And man, oh man, are those some of the most action figure-y designs I've ever seen.
How toyetic can you get?
Toyetic is a word created by marketing people.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I actually really enjoyed it, but you can definitely tell that this series is aiming to be a little bit more kid-friendly than, I guess, the last Netflix outing. I think Many Faces, started a cult. Wait, was Many Faces, a bad guy or a good guy? But like I said, they were definitely trying to make it a little bit more kid-friendly. Most of the fighting involves the characters doing big charge-up attacks with their logos flashing in the background while they recycle animation. Which is a little bit distracting, but you know what? It's He-Man. It's a Filmation production. It has a history of reusing animation and its assets. So, you can't be too upset because it's just staying true to its own roots.
In today's story, Skeletor was looking for a shortcut, a quick way to riches and power. You may know some people like that, always looking for the quick way to get ahead of everybody else.
The setting is great. It's fantastic. Eternia, or Eternos, as they call it. That confused me. I wasn't exactly sure what they were doing there. It may play into a bigger theme that's going on, but then it may not. They may just be doing a different name for it. But whether or not, it all looks fantastic. There are big sprawling cities. There are dense jungles. The library in Eternia, or Grayskull, looks fantastic. I've always had this issue with some CGI cartoons. It's where the world just feels way too small or uninhabited, like in the, I think it was the 2012 TMT cartoon. Everything just looked like they were running around on a huge skybox with a big empty city. But either way, I was just oh, this is great. This feels like it's an actual world I would like to go and see. Most of the time, Eternia looks like just a real crap hole, especially in the 2007 cartoon on Cartoon Network. It had red and piss yellow skies. It didn't look fun to go to. They also changed up the story a bit. In this version, Adam is separated from his royal family, and he is raised by Cringer in the forest. One day he happens to discover the sword and the ability to tap into the He-Man powers. Meanwhile, his uncle has discovered the powers of Havoc, the sort of evil force that counters the power of Grayskull, and he has become the new Skeletor. Furthermore, He-Man also has the ability to give his friends the power of Grayskull, and they tap into the powers of the original characters. Also, I'm a huge sucker for the bad guys getting their own version of the good guys' power set, going all the way back to Captain Planet. I never was a huge fan of Captain Planet, but I really marked out when Captain Pollution showed up.
Your polluting powers combined, I am Captain Pollution!
So anyway, it is fun to see Skeletor do the same for his crew. I don't know how I feel about Evelyn's big dumb bat wing ears, but Zaz, who is just a new character, a really fun new character. His transformation into Beast Man is really, really fun. Also, this reminds me of an episode in the mid-2000 He-Man show where Adam learns that He-Man was an actual guy who sacrificed himself to save Eternia. And so every time he uses the sword, he actually taps in to his original powers. I think that's what they're kind of doing. I think this might be an extension of that idea. It seems like, because Man-at-Arms, he doesn't have the mustache anymore. He's like some kid. And then there's Ram-Man, who I'm not entirely familiar with the He-Man characters. I guess that's like, who's that guy with the big neck that could like, I guess he had an extending neck and it like rammed stuff. So maybe I liked this version of that character better. Or actually, you know what? I just like this character on her own. Again, I'm not too familiar with He-Man. I just think this one's neat. She's a brass childhood friend of Adam. They're like orphans of the Tiger tribe, the one that Cringer is a part of. But more on that later. But I'm trying to say is that there's this sort of meta element going on here about like maybe history repeating itself and time being circular.
The Master's nemesis have finally arrived.
The in-world reason for that is because, evil always arises and good has to find a way to fight it. But, we know in the real world it's because IP recognition.
Wow, what fun! It's the toy we think you should buy.
In sort of the original preceding He-Man cartoons, it was real simple. You had the good guys and you had the bad guys. And the king was a good guy, and his prince son was like the goodest guy of them all. In this one, they're doing sort of a complicated social hierarchy thing, where you've got the Tiger tribe. It's this tribe that lives outside of the constructs of society. They live in the wild. And because of some shenanigans that Adam and his uncle got into involving Grayskull, he lost his memory, wandered around, and then Cringer found him and adopted him. It was actually really heartwarming. And then you have the city where the king sort of lives in his ivory tower, and then there's this whole lower class that is not really being oppressed, but not really being taken care of. And that's basically because the king hates He-Man in this. It's really complicated. Well, not too complicated. He was taught that the power of Grayskull was too much for any one man to wield. So instead of any of the previous kings becoming He-Man, like Adam did, he was taught that he basically just had to safeguard it, which really infuriated his uncle, Skeletor, basically. He's not Skeletor for like one episode, and then he totally embraces the evil power that is corrupting him, and he goes wholehearted. He's totally ham. He's actually a really great Skeletor. He's like totally lost his mind, and he loves it.
Can you speak up a little bit?
Why?
I have a microphone. You don't.
So from the king's perspective, his son disappears. He's lost his brother as well. No word about what happened to the mom, who I think in the original cartoon was an astronaut from Earth. And also, they've shown a family portrait and there's no sign of She-Ra in it. So I don't know how they're going to work that in, or even if they want to. He's just got like a real hate boner for anything that involves Grayskull, because he has basically lost his entire family to this stupid legacy. And then all of a sudden this shit brick house shows up, and he's like tossing the sword around, and he shows up wherever there's any trouble. So he just like really hates He-Man. So much to the point that he has maybe neglected his royal duties in taking care of his people, because he's just like such a bitter sack of crap. They do a little bit to redeem him towards the end of the season, but it was just really interesting that they'd actually set up a kind of social, emotional dynamic between all the characters. What else? I already talked about how great Skeletor is. He's, yeah, like I said, he's basically lost his mind. He's fully leaning into the whole Saturday morning villain shtick, while at the same time being really intimidating.
Hand Skeletor your weapon.
You forgot mine, Lord Skeletor.
Oh, I'm chewing on something else for you.
There's one episode that I love. It's where he's forging the powers for his underlings, and during the whole thing, he causes a storm that threatens to destroy like the city of Eternia, and it is so devastating and so crippling to the city. Like again, it nearly destroys He-Man and the King. However, he didn't plan any of that. He was just goofing around. That was a side effect of what he was really trying to do. So he literally could have just won without even knowing it. He could have shown up to the invasion plan one day and saw the whole city was leveled and destroyed if He-Man hadn't had stopped the storm with his big super special charge-up attack, his special summon. And that's just kind of shows you how scary this Skeletor is. He doesn't need to actually try to do anything. He'll just mess around and things will go crazy. He also has this great army of skeleton monsters. He basically reanimated dead snake soldiers. I think he goes into Snake Mountain. I think the snakes have always been like this super secret bosses in the He-Man universe. So he goes to Snake. Did I say Snake Island or did I say Snake Mountain? He goes to Snake Mountain, and he resurrects all these like dead mutant dinosaurs. They're full of goo, and they're already dead. So they give all of our main characters a chance to use all their weapons to just their most violent ends, and they don't have to worry about hurting a single person. That's sort of one thing about the show, I will say, is that some of the action is like really, really good, really fantastic. Especially the chase sequences. They're all done really well, really dynamic, really enthralling. And then sometimes, when it comes to hand-to-hand combat, it feels like the characters are just kind of waving their arms around. And then they eventually do their super attack. This is the tradition of He-Man. This is the tradition of Saturday morning cartoons, where they would reuse the same sort of animation again and again, like Sailor Moon and Power Rangers and stuff like that. I like how Man-at-Arms, I like his design. He's basically just looks like Samus from Metroid. And I think he actually has a great power set with his shield and his just big frickin' mace. Again, totally different from the Man-at-Arms that we know before, who's just like this sort of mustachioed maverick. He's a little bit more of a tech nerd, but that's okay. It's a good interpretation, and he's a builder. He's a tech guy. It's good. I like this inverse version of him. Cringer is really cool. He's very eloquent. He's very wise. He's like the kind of father of the group, the elder.
Why would you go hunting alone again?
Everyone in the tribe does their part. Even without my claws, I'd like to still do mine.
They go into his backstory and explain that he is the way he was because he was poached. And when he wouldn't participate in arena fights, he was basically declawed, which is basically a death sentence for his species. And then there's actually this really cool part where Man-at-Arms makes this pair of really cool robotic claws. And it's just kind of awesome to see, like, in a way that's sort of the metaphor for the team coming together. The first 4 episodes could actually be their own movie. And in fact, they do a big title drop at the end of it all.
A master of the what now?
Oh, I guess I should talk about Orco, the best interpretation of this character I've ever seen. You see, Man-at-Arms tries to repair this broken robot, and he uses some spare parts that he finds in Grayskull. One of them is data from Orco the Great, this ancient wizard. Again, this is kind of taken from the 2012 series. It feels like they want to do a soft reboot, but they may later tie back into how this is like some sort of alternative timeline universe thing. But anyway, no matter. So this glitchy robot thinks that he is some great wizard of old. And over the season, he begins to realize exactly what he is and goes through an existential crisis. But, by the end of it, has resolved to be the best Orco they can be. It's like a really great reimagining and makes this really annoying character actually sympathetic.
But I'm not a security bot or a wizard. I don't belong anywhere.
None of us do.
So, you're actually rooting for him when he does figure out how to do something really impressive.
Abracadabra, abracadee, our escape you will not see.
Overall, the writing can fluctuate between being really inspired to being just like kind of wonky. Like I said, the same can be said for the action. Sometimes it's like really good, and sometimes it just feels like cramped. Like all the characters standing in like 1 5-foot radius. Also, I'm not sure, but I think there might be a hybrid of capture animation going on. There is this one shot that feels really motion captured to me, which is great, because if that could help speed things up, then I am all for that. You know what? There was one thing I forgot to mention, is that sometimes the visual effects look like they are flat, cel-shaded, almost 2D animation. And it's an aesthetic. It's definitely. I don't know whether it fights or complements the show, because again, the style is very stylized. I don't know, bright colors and everything, but the actual models have smooth shading on them, and then all of a sudden you get these stark contrasts with the visual effects sometimes. And other visual effects don't have that. It's usually explosions or sometimes energy blasts. And then other energy blasts are done with like glow effects on the computer. There's like 2 different types of fire. There's explosion fire, which looks like flat cell shading. And then there's regular fire, which looks like it's CG generated. Again, it sticks out to me. Not so much that I actually remembered to complain about it in the proper vlog, but just enough that it really kind of sticks out when you see it. Again, it's a choice. It was probably maybe done for the sake of saving time or money. So yeah, I just thought that was weird. Either way, there is definitely more good than bad here. So I'm actually looking forward to see what would happen in the next season, and you might want to check it out too.